try to take a look at a few of those. First thing I thought I'd be interesting to look at is ECMAScript 6 modules. And we're going to try to do a little bit of coding here. I'm going to write a node. Let me get rid of this guy and this guy. And then let's open up demo node. And in here, I'm going to try to write a little server using Node and using ECMAScript 6 modules. So the first thing I'm going to do is reference path equals node.d.ts. So I'm going to grab all of the static type information for Node. In fact, you can look at it by going by pressing F12 here and see here's all the static type definitions for Node. And with those in hand, I can now say import something from HTTP. And HTTP is one of the modules in Node. If we go to definition, you'll see that it's in here. And now that I've said where I'm importing from, we can actually show you what there is to import. So I'm going to grab create server. And that now gives me a local binding for the create server method in Node. Now there's an error here that says remember to put the modules flag on when you compile. We're just going to ignore that for now. Let's now try to write a little simple server function here that takes a port number and a message string, like so. And in the body of this guy, we'll say create server. And here we're supposed to pass a callback. So we'll create a callback like this. And now in here, I can say response dot. And you'll note again here that I didn't say anything about the type of res, but we have been able to flow the types through. We know that this callback takes a response object, and we know what the properties of that guy are. And you know, we can in here we can response.write. I'm just going to grab a piece of code. Let's see here. And then we'll also start our server by saying listen on the port that the user specified. And that's basically our little server. Now we can create a client module that uses that server. So from here now we're going to say import from /server. And again, now if we go and ask for statement completion here, there's a guy called simple server. Just a little note, it's kind of funny here how we can't give you statement completion until you say where you're importing from, obviously, right? Because it'd be guesswork otherwise. It's one of those funny things, it's why in C# link the from clause comes first. Because you say from blah, select something. And once you've set the from, we can actually help you. But if you say select blah from somewhere or import blah from somewhere, we can't help you until you write the stuff that you're writing later. But anyway, that's sort of just a funny little anecdote. Here, now we can start simple server on port 1337 and maybe say hello, whack whack build, like so, and then console.log. This thing on 1337, like that. Done. That should be our program. There are many ways of compiling code here. I'm going to use the command line compiler. So in here we now have hello and server. And I can simply just use the command line compiler to say compile hello. And, well, you'll see here it complains, you have to tell me what kind of modules you want to use. Well, Node uses CommonJS modules, so we'll tell it to use those. And what happens now is we get a server.js file and we get a hello.js file. And you'll note that I used ECMAScript 6 modules, but of course Node doesn't understand ECMAScript 6 yet. And so we need to cross-compile it to CommonJS modules, and so my import statement turned into a require instead in both of those places. But other than that, my code is pretty much the same. And now I can start my server, and then let's try to go to localhost 1337, and here's our little Node server running. Thank you, thank you. So that's server side development with ECMAScript 6. Of course, client side is equally important. And I thought for that, I'm going to try to use ECMAScript 6 to write a little Angular 2.0 application, and then try to run that. And I thought for fun, why not use the new Visual Studio Code tool to do that? So we're gonna switch gears here and fire up Visual Studio Code. And we're gonna open up a folder, demo/ng. Select that folder. And in here, I just have a prereq little project with an empty file. You see that already in here, I've added the Angular declaration file and a Firebase declaration file. This is actually a demo, an Angular demo that was written by a guy in JavaScript, and I'm just sort of replicating it here in Typescript. But now that we have this stuff, and I should mention too, by the way, that Visual Studio Code itself is written in Typescript. It uses the Electron shell, it's called, which is a derivative of the Atom.io project from GitHub. That's basically the Chrome that hosts the window. And then inside the window, it uses WebKit and TypeScript. It's all written in TypeScript. So all this editor that you see me using here. And in fact, it's the same editor that you saw in the playground. That editor was built by the same team. And this is, in a sense, that editor grown up and popped into a proper IDE. OK, so I'm going to try to do some importing here from Angular 2/Angular 2, like so. And once I do that, we can now in here show you things that are available to import. So I'm going to import component and view and bootstrap and for. And you know, some other imports. I'm actually here going to cheat a little bit and just go back to my toolbox and grab this code here so you don't have to watch me type it all, like so. Then I'm going to write a class called to-do, say, MVC. And in here, I'm going to declare to-do service. Oh my gosh, there. To-do service, colon, Angular, Firebase array, and to-do edit, null, and then write a constructor. And the constructor takes an Angular, fire object here. Jeez. There we go. And in here, I can say this dot, and you see we get statement completion, of course, to-do service equals sync dot as array, and we know what the methods on that guy are. And this dot to-do edit equals null. OK, so that's the constructor for my little object. Finally here, you know, in order to bootstrap the app, I would call bootstrap. Now, I also need to fill in the body here. Again, I'm going to cheat and grab some code here and just paste it in. This is actually JavaScript code, completely unchanged from the original JavaScript demo. I'm just pasting it in. You see there are no type annotations in this, but that's fine. Oops, no, that's not here. That's not null. That's any. There we go. OK. Now, the last thing I have to do is add some annotations or some decorators to this class that say something about how this class fits into Angular and how things get injected into the class. And so one of the things we now support in TypeScript is decorators. So I can here start a decorator called add component, like so. And in here, I can then say selector, colon, to-do app, and you'll see that we actually know and can tell you which are the ones that are available. Again, I'm not going to write all of this. Now, the interesting thing about this, though, is this is actually yet another feature from the future. This is something that is being proposed for ECMAScript 7, but can be down-level compiled to ECMAScript 6. And we already have support for that at this point. So let me try to just grab the code that is supposed to go there, and let me try to paste it like this. And that's pretty much it. Let me try to build my app, and it builds with no errors. And now let's try to go to the NG here, and then let's fire up HTTP server on port 8081. There. And now this app should be running, so let's go to the browser. Let's go to localhost 8081. And here we see the little to-do app. And in here, I can just sort of add things that need to be done. It's always a little interesting to run this demo because this uses a service called Firebase, which stores stuff in the cloud. And everyone running this little demo puts stuff into the same to-do list. So sometimes I'm a little worried about obscene words and whatever. But we're good right here. So we can clear the completed ones and so forth. So that gives you sort of a brief idea of what the development experience is like with Angular. But to talk a little bit more about the work that we've been doing with the Angular team, I'm sure all of you noticed that we announced a partnership with the Angular team some months ago. And rather than have me talk about why this partnership is wonderful, I thought I would bring up a couple of team members from the Angular team. So it's a big pleasure for me to introduce to you Brad Green and Misko Hevery from the Google Angular team. And they're going to talk a little bit about why they're using TypeScript. Welcome, guys. Good to see you. Misko, yeah, there you go.
Thanks, Anders. Well, Misko, why don't you tell folks a little bit about how we got started with TypeScript?
Right. So about a year ago, we thought it was a good idea to announce a new language called AppScript. It was the best of JavaScript, best of TypeScript, and plus annotations.
That's right. Soon after that announcement, we started chatting with Anders and other folks on the team about potentially merging our language work. Last March, we invited Jonathan from the TypeScript team to our main developers conference, where we announced that we had completely merged efforts and we would be replacing all of AppScript with TypeScript in our work for Angular 2.
I couldn't be.
Yeah.
I am relieved that we don't have to deliver a framework and a language.
Me too, man. Me too. All right, but as I remember, not too long ago, you weren't actually that big of a fan of types in JavaScript, right?
That's true. You know, it's funny because I come from a Java background, and there's plenty of types in Java. And when I want to move to JavaScript, it turns out I was able to build application without types. And so I thought, you know, this type stuff was kind of overrated, and who needs them anyways? But it turns out as the team grew and it got larger and we got more contributors, it kind of actually became useful to have types around.
Yeah, well, tell folks why is that?
So there's several reasons why that is. First of all, documentation. Types gives you names for things. You have a common vocabulary, common mental model, and just being able to refer to things is just a win-win for everybody. The next thing is when you're building an application with a framework, there's a lot of contract between a framework and what you have to do with the application. Having some kind of a tool, a compiler, to verify these contracts is very useful. Lastly, we're big fans of writing unit tests. And we write tests first and doing it everywhere. But we found that even with lots of due diligence and testing, we still found that type system would help find many issues that we didn't notice. And then the last point is having an IDE that can help us with completion and getting around the code and just finding out where things are declared is super useful. And this is extra useful for bringing people who are new to the project on board.
That's right. So today, Angular 2 is built using TypeScript, not AppScript.